Anyway, today you all saw the images, but today I'm gonna focus more on the UK government. And before we dive into this UK government, I want to thank all of my viewers that are tuned in. Remember that you can also get me on YouTube, Transparency Media International, and you can always get me there, or you follow me on my Facebook. So either way, you should be able to get me live. But one key thing is that we want to thank first of all, I want to thank the United States, because the United States continue engagement on this crisis in Southern Cameroon. And we're going to also listen to key officials. They may not be in government in the UK, but they have raised an alarm. But yet, we thought the UK government should have been ready to face the reality and correct the mistakes they impose upon the people of Southern Cameroon. And yet the people of Southern Cameroon continue to bleed. And this bleeding is a constant bleeding that the people, we don't know when that bleeding gonna end. But however, we will continue to stand our ground to speak up against injustice that was inflicted upon the people of Southern Cameroon by the British government. And so in this scenario, even though they sit quietly, that they are working on the background, how long does they have to work on the background? They have to speak up. They have to speak up. They have to raise their voice so that we know that they are talking about it, because our people continue to be massacred. They are massacred because of the injustice imposed upon the loving people of Southern Cameroon. And today, how this bleeding gonna stop? We're gonna listen to some of the key players. They may not still be in UK government, but however, their message should have resonated the entire government of the UK. But unfortunately, they are remaining silent. And that is how we have to stand up our grounds against the UK government, because it's the UK injustice that imposed upon the people of Southern Cameroon. That is why we are experiencing this nightmare of slaughtering that is going on in Southern Cameroon. As you may see, so either way, you should be able to get me live. Thank you. Don't go away. Stay tuned. It's going to be a wonderful day. Fellow viewers, thank you Desmond, thank you Jamil, thank you all of you that are tuned in. And if you just tune in, you can also share. So many of you, maybe you may be watching me for the first time, or you may haven't. But however, I am speaking about the issues because many of you may be here in the United States or elsewhere around the world. And you have been seeing these images that is coming out, these horrendous and horrific images that has been placed around the Facebook all over. And it's coming from one particular area, the Southern Cameroon. Southern Cameroon, as many of you may know or may don't, is a former British colonial territory. A former British colonial territory. This territory, as you all know, when the Germans defeated during the World War by the Allied forces, so those territories that were initially occupied by the Germans, those initial territory that was occupied by the Germans were under the control of the Allied forces that defeat the Germans. So a United Nations organization was formed in 1945. The essence of the United Nations was to maintain peace and security. United Nations session agreed upon that those territories that were under the colonial administrative or the Allied forces should be restored to their prior independence, should be prepared for immediate independence. So France prepared La République du Cameroun for independence. Britain should have also prepared Southern Cameroon for its own immediate independence. The injustice, as you all seen, the injustice to the people of Southern Cameroon was caused by British government failure to recognize or restore the people of Southern Cameroon to their immediate independence. So in a failure, it's a total systematic failure on behalf of the British government. The British government, I don't know if you give me what reason, that they intentionally refused deliberately not to restore the Southern Cameroon to its prior as mandated by the United Nations organizations, that those territories that were under the Allies' control should be restored to its full independence. Southern Cameroon wasn't, while France restored La République. So for some reason, they did not, despite the fact that Southern Cameroon enjoyed administrative authority initially over the British administrative authority in Nigeria. So, in fact, it is a diabolical behavior that has caused Great Britain systematic failure not to restore the Southern Cameroon to the prior status as mandated by the United Nations. As you might be seeing, they call it ethnic cleansing. They call it La République du Cameroun. For many of you that may not be aware of historical background, may find it offensive that why should a certain part, because they call the separatists. That is a common word they use, they call the separatists. It's ironically that the British government will call the people of Southern Cameroon separatists. Who are they separating from? Because had it been the British government restored the people of Southern Cameroon as mandated by the United Nations, then there shouldn't have been this form of fighting. Now they call the separatists. Who are we separating from? If we respect the law, then let's apply the law as it is. This injustice that you find the people of Southern Cameroon suffering is because of the British systematic failure in the entire system. And they won't even accept the reality. Let's listen to the British key officials. The former, whether she's still member of the British Parliament. Let's listen to one of the UK response. And then we can move forward.
Regime of Cameroon's President Biya against English-speaking communities in the west of the country, which were formerly known as British Cameroon, communities to whom we owe a historic responsibility.
They owe a historic responsibility.
Men and women who saw their villages attacked by Biya's military, who saw their neighbours and families members killed, and that they were forced to flee for their lives. They quoted the charity workers who were looking after thousands of displaced women and children for whom they warned going home would be suicide. Now, by any normal moral standard, you would expect the UK government to read those reports and be appalled. But not this government. The very next day after that report was published, the British Trade Secretary announced a £1.5 billion deal with a British national gas company and President Biya's regime. A deal which, in the words of the Trade Department's press release, will, quote, generate a huge stream of revenue for Cameroon's public treasury. In other words, we have a regime ranked as the 25th most corrupt in the world, a ruler in his 43rd year of autocratic power, with a personal wealth of over $200 million, engaged in a systematic campaign of brutality and killings against English-speaking community in his country. And all the government can do is boast of doing trade deals which will only enrich him further. That
As you all listen, maybe the sound is next time I'm gonna try to see that I can so the volume can increase so that you can personally. I will still broadcast this message again, but I will indicate when I will still broadcast the same message. But what is she saying? She is saying that they owe an obligation on the people of Southern Cameroon because we have a historical relationship. British government has a historical relationship with the people of Southern Cameroon and not with La République du Cameroon. Why the Guardian newspaper, which I am thanking them for their excellent job, the Guardian newspaper published a report about the most corrupted system of government in this world, the 25th corruption. So I don't know whatever it is now. And the trade secretary in the British government published a trade deal worth 1.5 billion US dollar. In the meantime, when the people of Southern Cameroon are living in the forest, they basically have nowhere to go. They are being massacred by this terrorist government of La République. And the British government foreign trade secretary announcing a trade deal. One will expect them to be more knowledgeable. In fact, it didn't occur to them to recognize that the people of Southern Cameroon, the territory, they owe trade, they owe relationship, the language in which we are spoken, the English in which originate, is the relationship that exists between the people of Southern Cameroon and the British government. But when the citizens of Southern Cameroon are being massacred, one will expect the British government to come to the aid of the Southern Cameroon, despite the relationship they have. Instead, they are proud of a trade deal with the same terrorist government of La République that is massacring the citizens of Southern Cameroon without any remorse from the British government. Fellow brothers and sisters, just hold on for a minute. The images that I have, you might find them on my live broadcast on my YouTube that you may not have here. You can see that despite the relationship, British is still concentrated on a gas deal and minimize the citizens of that particular land in which they are being massacred each day. At the same time, there are over 8,000 or 16,000 people probably in Nigeria escaping for persecution that is being carried out by the brutal terrorist government of La République. Why did we have to come to this? It's because of the forgery of personal egoistic of the British government. In fact, the people of Southern Cameroon enjoy a democratic form of government prior to injustice that the British thought we were better off joining La République than remain self-governed country. In fact, we have a self-governing country more than La République. We have an elected prime minister. We have a member of parliament. We have an election that was conducted. and that was generally accepted. We have Ndele, the initial prime minister, conduct an election, and he won, and he became the first prime minister. He takes his cabinet members to Nigeria, Enugu House of Assembly in Nigeria. In Nigeria, it was a common relationship. It was a common debate between two countries that they discussed issues affecting both countries. And after which, Ndele was returned back with his cabinet in Southern Cameroon. There were never infighting. There were never war declared by Nigeria on the people of Southern Cameroon in this relationship. When Ngarbuh Ntumbaw became the next prime minister, Ndele became the opposition in parliament. And yet, they were never infighting. In fact, we enjoyed democratic form of government than La République du Cameroon under the French administrative authority. La République has never, since its colonial, have any meaningful democratic elected officials since La République was initially mandated by the United Nations to be restored to as mandated by the United Nations. They haven't. Southern Cameroon, after Ngarbuh Ntumbaw became the next prime minister. That election was conducted unanimously and accepted. Has La République has any meaningful election? Of course, you will agree with me that La République hasn't had any meaningful election that was conducted through harmony. And yet the British government, on a false assumption, believed that the people of Southern Cameroon should be governed by La République and they can't govern themselves. In fact, when the northern Nigeria, the northern Cameroon that joined Nigeria, that was the least among the British West African colony that depend on subvention by the British Crown. Southern Cameroon never depend on the subvention from the British Crown. And yet, it doesn't make any sense and meaningful to the British authority to recognize that the people of Southern Cameroon are self-sufficient to be able to govern themselves. They thought we must be under La République control because of their personal egoistic means to satisfy their own fellow France. So they shouldn't get involved in the East Africa. They can have monopoly over East Africa. Our people are now being slaughtering like animals by the most brutal terror regime. One will expect the British government to raise their voice. Even the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, he can't even open his mouth and speak up. Of course, Africa, who cares? They're slaves. They can murder them. It doesn't matter. But it's because of the injustice that were imposed by the British government on behalf of our people. And that is why we are suffering. And they cannot speak up. They can't speak up. The injustice is the injustice British government imposed upon our people. And now we are making the suffering. And yet they can't speak up. Their own paper, the Guardian Post, is writing to educate a government that is incoherent. The Guardian Post is writing to educate the government of UK to stand up against injustice. And yet, one would expect them to stand up and say, oh, it's our fault, and to admit their wrongdoing and stand up for their obligations. Of course, UK won't stand up for their obligation, for their injustice they impose upon our people. Yes, we can speak. Of course, it doesn't matter to them, because so long as none of the British government are being harmed, none of the British citizens are being harmed, so long as it's a third-rate country, it doesn't matter. How does it matter? It doesn't matter to them. Let's kill them. Fellow brothers and sisters, we all see the world how it is. The world is a corrupted environment. One will expect that we will grow up in an environment where corruption is free. But however, we are speaking up to let the world understand that in the midst of corruption, we can stand up against corrupt system. Let's look back to the United Nations at itself. The United Nations is the most corrupted organization on this planet. I would expect that the fact that it's here in the United States, if happened was being in China, well, it doesn't matter because it's the communist system. If it was in China, well, it's communist system, and in communist system, no one except the central government that control the power. But in the United States, I expect the United States government to stand up and say, no, we cannot support this injustice. If we are a United Nations organization, let's stand for the common good of everyone, not for a selected few. Not for a selected few. But injustice is what is matters. Injustice is the most admired. Injustice is what matters to international community. Article 1514, a decolonization. Article 1514, XV of the Charter of the United Nations on decolonization. That should have been a matter to be put to the United Nations. Imagine that this slaughter was in Europe. An emergency session would have been called in. If this was happening in Europe, 24 hours United Nations would have been called in. But since it's third world country, do you think it matters? It doesn't. It doesn't matter to them. So long as it's a black race, we can slaughter them. They can slaughter themselves. We don't care. So long as it doesn't affect us. But when it comes to sitting in a meeting, they expect the African country to sit beside them to discuss matter that affecting everyone. But when it comes to matter of justice, it is not applicable. It is not applicable. Imagine that young children that are still in their prime, a treacherous government will slaughter those children and claim that they are not aware of it. That is the most outrageous in this planet. La République du Cameroon will slaughter children and declare that they are not aware of. And the world community has the tendency to believe that it is true. Their communication minister, a report published by the BBC journalist, the most trusted reporter, report about La République military killing civilian, young mother and children in extreme north in Cameroon. Communication minister. He's still in government. He's still in La République government. They just twist his position and put somewhere else. Because that's how the chronic, just moving around like a viruses. They just circulating. They move from one position, they put it in another position. They circulate like viruses. A communication minister will stand up and say he is not aware that the incident happened in Mali. Oh, for Christ's sake, this is the most worst environment. I mean, how do we trust the world when the world cannot stand up for reality? How can we trust the world when the world cannot stand for reality? A communication minister will say the incident happened in Mali and there is no boundary between La République du Cameroon and the Malian authority. How can it happen in Mali? And first of all, who published the report? A genuine BBC reporter reporting about the massacre, and La République will claim that it didn't happen. How would they claim that the murder in Ngarbuh happened in La République? If they cannot accept a BBC reporter, then why would they accept their own fellow US, fellow this world community? How biased are you biased in a fact of reality? In a time of reality, let's stand up and say no to injustice. Let's stand up against injustice. Let's stand up for injustice. Let's stand up and advocate injustice. This is the most amazing injustice that one can ever admire. If the British government stood up in its national radio and said they would recognize the people of Southern Cameroon, if the British government stood up and said they would recognize the injustice they inflicted upon the people of Southern Cameroon, things will begin to change. But it doesn't matter to them. The British ambassador is worried more about the natural gas exploitation in Limbo, in Victoria. That is what it matters to the British government. The natural gas to be exploited in Limbo, in Victoria, in Southern Cameroon. Whether what happened to the indigenous people, it doesn't matter to them. They can slaughter so long as not British citizen is being slaughtered. Fellow brothers and sisters, that is the world we live in. But we got to stand up and say no to injustice. No to injustice. And I will also stand up for injustice. Let's stand up for injustice. Because injustice is the most tumor that is eating this world community. Because they don't want to stand for the truth. And we must speak it out. Articles 15, 14, a decolonization. Why can they not respect their own document, the decolonization? Why was it not applied to Southern Cameroon? If that is what was agreed upon at the United Nations headquarters here in the United States, why can they not respect it, the Decolonization Act? 1608 was voted. United Nations officials asked, let the people have their immediate independence. The British government said, no, we are not ready. How do they evaluate us that we are not ready? La Repubblica did not even have a full democratic government. And up to now, they haven't yet. The people of Southern Cameroon they does have a democratic elected officials. La Republic did not, and they haven't up to today. In a moment like this, in a crisis like this, let's stand up against injustice. Let's look. Let's look. This is one of the UK. That is one of UK foreign minister. Although we haven't got information from the current minister, foreign minister for African affairs. She wouldn't even call the people of Southern Cameroon. She called La Republic because the British are just a clique. They're just a clique of people that ignore the fact. One would expect them to be more cautious. You all know what is happening in Shanghai, China. Those are people that have lived with the British form of government for 150 years. And they choose to ignore their right to exist as a nation. They hand over to communist system and expect them to live in harmony. There is something fundamentally wrong with the UK. They expect them to live with harmony with the most communist China. People that have living in their life free, liberty, that they endure from the British government. And now they're being forced to live with communist system. That they don't have no right to freedom, right to liberty and equality. That is, one will expect Britain to be more matured and be able to have intelligent mind to understand what they have instituted into people and that they are capable now to live their life freely. There is something fundamentally wrong with UK. Today, let's speak up. This is the UK. She wouldn't even call the word Southern Cameroon. That's the former UK. She wouldn't. Let's listen to what she has to say.
UN Human Rights Council statement about the deteriorating situation in Cameroon. Southern Cameroon voted to join French Cameroon as federated states equal in status, but this is clearly not what has happened. They are treated as a region made up of second-class citizens. The UK has a duty to the Southern Cameroons to use all available instruments in order to find a solution to the growing crisis. A solution which takes into account the wishes of the people of the Southern Cameroon. Will the Secretary of State meet with me and a delegation of Southern Cameroons to discuss possible solutions?
You listen to the speaker. The speaker used the word Southern Cameroon, but the UK minister wouldn't even use the word Southern Cameroon. They use the word Cameroon because that is their greatest ambition, to colonize the people of Southern Cameroon for their own self-egoistic interest. A speaker calling Southern Cameroon because they distinguish, but the British Honorary Secretary wouldn't even mention the word Southern Cameroon. She deviates from the truth, and that is why La Republic take advantage and inflicting pain and suffering upon our own people. Is there something wrong with the black race? Is something wrong? Something is fundamentally wrong. UK Secretary wouldn't even mention the word, but their own invited guest is calling Southern Cameroon the true worth, but they wouldn't. Let's listen to her again, if she will.
Well, can I start by congratulating the Honourable Lady for getting this number one on the order paper today, because it has been a worsening crisis and the UK has been strongly engaged with our international partners to try and find a way forward. With respect to the territorial integrity of Cameroon, of course the UK recognises
the territorial integrity of Cameroon. The territorial integrity of Cameroon. When did La Republic get the territorial integrity of Cameroon? That is the most outsane from the British officials. When a representative tried to differentiate Southern Cameroon and La Republic du Cameroon, a British secretary said the territorial integrity. Thus, they have sound judgment. Of course, you will agree with me that there is no sound judgment in speaking up against reality. The territorial integrity of what territorial integrity? Remember, at the United Nations headquarters in New York, here in the United States, it's not in China, it's not in Russia, it's not in Asia, it's here in the United States. Let's call the United Nations headquarters and find out what is the title they have. They have La Republique du Cameroon at the United Nations. That is what they have. So she is saying the territorial integrity. Is that misjudgment or misguided analysis from the British high-level officials that will expect reality? Territorial integrity. It is absolutely a nightmare. It is absolutely a nightmare. When it comes to justice, it is not equitably applied to the other race in the society. They isolate the other races and they protect their own self-identity because they pick up their choices of words and ignore the fact. They ignore the fact. They ignore the fact. And that is why she has the audacity and said the territorial integrity of Cameroon. Because of the natural gas deal that the previous spoke about the Guardian newspaper.
The territorial integrity
Listen.
of Cameroon, but we also believe that where there are calls for more autonomy in the southwest and the northwest, that the government of Cameroon.
You hear the way they have choice of word, the southwest and the northwest. The south. So we have been franchised. We have been downgraded. We have been converted to what they call the southwest and the northwest. She wouldn't even use the word Southern Cameroon. That was what they had when they have their British administrative authority at the Enugu House of Assembly. They have been downgraded and to what she now called the northwest and southwest. She wouldn't want to use the right word. That is the British government. Of course, that is the British government. The Northwest and the Southwest for some kind of autonomy. Fellow brothers and sisters, you all see this injustice that imposed upon the divine people of Southern Cameroon. She wouldn't even use the word Southern Cameroon because forget about Amazonia. Let's forget about the word Amazonia. Let's use the right word, Southern Cameroon. She wouldn't even use the word. The Northwest and Southwest. The Northwest and Southwest. Territorial integrity. That is the most blind-minded people of the UK that I have ever seen on this planet. Article 1514 XV, the decolonizations. Article 1514 XV, decolonizations. Why can't they implement it? Because they want to satisfy the French anarchism. And the life of the people of Southern Cameroon being sacrificed as the slaughtering house. Yes, the sacrifice and the slaughtering house. If United States or Great Britain stood up today in their social media and said, we are going to recognize the people of Southern Cameroon, immediately, drastically, La Republic immediately start pulling its military out of Southern Cameroon. But UK wouldn't. If UK and United States say no to decolonization, we are not going to stand for injustice. We are going to stand for the right, for the privilege of the people of Southern Cameroon. That let's respect the original document. La Republic will immediately pull out. La Republic will immediately pull out. Let's listen to the UK how she frame her languages, their choice of word.
It needs to engage in an inclusive political dialogue because currently the violence from both sides is leading to really serious situations for civilians on the ground.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In her discussions with US counterparts about the worrying situation in Cameroon, has
The other one is just I don't know, it's just an idiot. So can't even listen to that. That's the torture. That's what is going on in Southern Cameroon. That is the torture. Yes, that is the lifestyle in Southern Cameroon. That is the lifestyle that we find in the people of Southern Cameroon. The torturing chamber. You hear who are doing the torture? The Francophones, La Republique. You hear? That's the torture. They're using machete to hit the souls of someone. And what is amazing? They're using machete. All right. This, we all know this brutality of the regime. This video was published by the BBC journalists about women that were walking on the street like a wanderer, like early man, we call early man. For you who have learned about the wandering or the early man. Those are women that are wandering with their little children. We should have human feeling. La Republique doesn't. We should have human feeling. But La Republique doesn't have human feeling. That is the military that executed in Gang North and when published by the BBC journalists. And when asked, they said it was a Malian authority because the environment looked almost similar like Mali. And so therefore they conclude that it is in Mali. So you think the British journalist is a blindfolded from BBC that cannot report the reality, that doesn't know the geographical map of location where they are. This is women and children slaughtered by the barbaric military of La République du Cameroon. Let's watch a bit of it, then we move forward. Watch the most cruelty and the most barbaric regime. One will expect the world must have stand up for against injustice. It doesn't matter. They are busy inclusive dialogue. Their famous word, inclusive dialogue. For the past 3 years, inclusive dialogue. It's barbaric. In a world of, one would think people can argue and solve problems in good judgment. Watch those little children. Basically, they have been probably 1 week without basically food to eat. But, well, they're going to be shot. Watch what happened to them. Watch. Watch. That little child is tearful. That little child, that woman is being blindfolded. That woman, probably, oh my God. In what world are we living in? The world of the most corrupted system. The world of injustice. Where injustice, look, those are La République military. Look at those I mean, it's those women, what do they possess? What threat do they possess?
On the Anglophone piece, I won't go into detail on that. I think the article.
You all saw what happens. This, again, is about the same problem. That's the top U.S. general here in the United States speaking about the problems. He doesn't want to go into detail because the truth is clear. Southern Cameroon, that is, they choose injustice over justice. They choose unreality against reality. That is the top U.S. general. He says they don't want to go into detail on the reality. Respect the document, Article 16 or Article 1514, decolonization. Respect the law. If that is the law, let's respect it. That is the top U.S. general speaking about injustice, and yet nothing is going to be done. Let's listen to the U.S. top general.
Plus the video this morning did a very good job of explaining the history of how it got to the point where we are today. In October of 2017, when it came kind of to a head, the Anglophone states said we want to actually form our own state, the Amazonia state. There have been issues.
Before you go to that, you see, United States call it as it is. They call it as it is. United States call it as it is. That is one thing I fell in love with these great nations. They call it as it is. But UK foreign minister wouldn't even mention the word Southern Cameroon. Not even to talk of Amazonia that's been mentioned by the top US general. He wouldn't even call the word Southern Cameroon, which we have a relationship with them for several decades. US, she fumbling around words. The territorial integrity of Cameroon. The Southwest and the Northwest demise our people because they don't want to stand for the truth. Because it was an injustice imposed upon their own government on the living people of Southern Cameroon. That is why she deviated from the truth. I admire United States because they say it as exactly as it is.
Issues with allegations of law of war issues, and this is something that brings all this to a head. Over the last the State Department has put on hold several security force assistance programs. Right before the election in October.
You listen. United States has suspended many, have done more, but UK has never done nothing. UK government has never suspended or do anything. They never even speak up. US ambassador in the neighboring country, La Republic, has spoken, has done this. UK diplomat, UK ambassador is mute. UK ambassador is mute. No can even stand up and speak up. It's mute. They are interested in the natural gas exploitation. That is what is interested in the UK government. They remain mute. US ambassador has spoken. US secretary has spoken. But British secretary can't even use the word. Let's listen a little bit from the US 4-star general.
I, with the ambassador, when we paid a visit with President Biya, we had a very direct conversation with him with regards to investigation of these atrocities, transparency of these atrocities, and appropriate battlefield behavior. Since that time, the State Department has made a decision not to allocate significant money, but at the same time, they've released some money that's been on hold to things like Scan Eagle and Cessna aircraft that assist in the Boko Haram fight in the north. We still have programs that we continue with them, all kind of small engagements as well as exercises. We did have we talked about the state partnership program with Nebraska. We put that on hold and in conjunction with the ambassador.
You listen to what the United States government is doing. They're actively doing something. But UK government, mute. UK government, mute.
They have been a good partner with us counterterrorism-wise, but you can't neglect the fact that they have there are alleged atrocities and what's going on there. And so we continue to take our cues from the State Department and from the ambassador, and our level of engagement will continue, but not get out ahead of what the State Department would say is if we have to take other actions. We are very emphatic with President Biya that the behavior.
So, if you listen to the top US general, in other words, the problem is still under the Secretary of State. So if US Secretary of State says this is the action they require to be done, it will be done immediately. If you listen to the 4-star general. So if United States say, okay, let's put down this regime to rest and let breathing space occur. It takes 24 hours. United States, that's the least for United States Department of Defense. That's the least. 24 hours is going to quell down all those and bring fundamental change. But will the US do something? It's the least. That's the just a captain, US captain, can bring down that system down. Just one US captain can bring La Republic to its knees. And if you listen to the 4-star general, they're waiting for clues from the Department of State so that they can do something. When are they going to do it? It's wait to be seen. Thank you, Mr. General. Listen, look how they torture civilians. Watch, that is how La Republic tortures civilians. Without any remorse. Without any remorse. Without any sense of remorse. You see, there's no sense of remorse.
Secretary of State for Foreign and Commonwealth Affairs, Tonya Anthony.
Fellow brothers and sisters, in the midst of this injustice, we have to fight for the reality. We have to stand up. We have to stand up for injustice. Injustice imposed upon our people. And in a world of reality, we will expect the world to become into a common sense, to think about, let's do good for the common good of everyone. Because if the world was thinking for doing good for the common good of everyone, we will not stand here and speak. Because if we respect the article of the United Nations, then let's respect that article. and let La République live out of Southern Cameroon and let the people be governed themselves. The people of Southern Cameroon doesn't need La République in order to govern. In fact, they don't need La République in any aspect. It's good that we live in a common boundary. We live in a boundary. Let them live in their harmony. Our people live in a harmony so that they grow and so that they can feel love and harmony within themselves and able to do what they think is good for them. They cannot become a slaughtering house as animals, mother, children living in the forest, in their own home, in their own loved land, in their own land. Not that they occupy someone's land, in their own territory. A foreigner, La République du Cameroun, is slaughtering the people of Southern Cameroon in their own home, in their own land. It's not something that they fought a war, that La République is coming to a revenge. No, it's their land, it's their territory, it's where they were born. Why? Why is a corrupted world cannot take the reality? They are forcing La République. It's just like if we know that if you get married and you can't live in harmony with your wife, you can divorce. If we can recognize that someone can divorce, why can we not divorce? Of course we should. If there was a marriage certificate. We don't have any marriage certificate with La République. We have what they call a cohabiting relationship. A cohabiting. That is the relationship we have with La République. But the world that is corrupted, it doesn't matter to them. That is the world we live in. So we will have to stand up for our obligations. Fellow brothers, I know we have lost 3,000 souls or more. Let's sacrifice and leave La République. Let La République pack its luggages and get out of Southern Cameroon. We don't need them. We have enablers that are coming to try to persuade us to live with them. Because if for their own personal interest, not for the interest of all Southern Cameroon. If we had left, we would have built a land that is prosperous. You also saw what happened to Kagame, the Rwandan president. He has reformed the war-torn era to more a getaway destination. If La République leave, a robust form of government will restructure the system of Southern Cameroon for the interest of all of us. But we will have to stand up for obligations. This is Funton Daniel speaking here from the great state of Texas, here in the United States. We will continue to stand up for the goodness for mankind. I wish you all a happy good evening.